Hey guys, we are on site at our Somerville project. We have a ton of millwork going on in this space. This is the same job that has that suspended cabinet. As you can see behind me here, we already have the post in the ceiling, so that post will receive the metal cabinet. But today we're here to install a railing up on the second floor. The entire stairwell that is open to below. We're gonna go ahead and get that railing installed so that the job site is safe. And there's a slat wall that the contractor is building that needs to coincide with our pieces, so we need to get that railing in so they can build their slat wall in place. The way that we have fabricated and plan to install this is a little bit unusual. So in this instance, it's a full flat panel. It's over 48 inches, it's 52. So we had to custom veneer over a piece of honeycomb. We opted for aluminum honeycomb. Because of its rigidity, with it being a railing, we didn't want any flex or risk of it breaking. So what we do is we take that aluminum honeycomb, it's 1 inch thick. We add a sheet of 1/8 inch on either side, 1/8 inch MDF, and then veneer right over that, giving us a final size of 1.25 inches. That 1.25 inches is carried through in several places through this unit. So we wanted to keep that consistent. So to install this panel, we're not using any visible fasteners. What we're actually going to do is domino that panel directly to the stringer and use some construction adhesive to glue that panel up tight to the stringer. So before we start dominoing this, we're gonna go ahead and lay out where these lines want to be, but also we wanna check the ceiling for level, for flatness, since the ceiling and the bottom of our panel are gonna be flush. We also wanna make sure that the floor upstairs is level, since we will be referencing those dominoes off of the floor. We also need to make sure that the stringer is flat and plumb. So what we're doing is checking for plumb with level, noting the spots that are high. We do have several high spots in that stringer, so we're gonna go ahead and plane those down. We're just gonna use a handheld power planer and take a little bit of material out of those high spots. We're actually gonna take a little bit more than we need. That way we can make sure we have a nice bit of construction adhesive in there and shim the top so that it is plumb. We did notice that the stringer was out of plumb in the wrong direction, meaning the bottom needed to go out, but we can't actually push the bottom out due to the reveal that's between the ceiling and our panel. That needs to remain consistent at 1/4 inch. We need to make sure we're able to push that top piece in and make that panel plumb. So we're gonna remove a little extra material so that we can shim out and plumb up that railing. So to domino the stringer, we're actually going to take the domino machine, hold it upside down and reference it off the ceiling to get that lower run of dominoes, and then do the reverse or the opposite up on the top. We'll reference it off the floor and cut those dominoes in there. So for the actual panel, since the bottoms are flush, we're able to keep that reference line consistent throughout. So for the top run of holes, we're just gonna pull a couple of measurements and use a long straight edge, in this case, just a cut off piece of plywood for reference on the domino cutter. Because we're cutting into the aluminum honeycomb, we're creating these larger pockets due to the way that the pieces are gonna be cut, and it is hollow in there, so we don't want the dominoes to move around a lot. We're gonna fill those in with epoxy so we do get a nice solid bond and add rigidity to those dominoes. So before we do the final installation using the construction adhesive and the epoxy, we're gonna go ahead and dry fit everything, make sure we have no issues, that all of the dominoes line up and we didn't make any mistakes, and that the panel is going to fit properly. If we do this once everything is already glued, we're gonna run into trouble and just make a mess if we had to peel that panel off. So we're gonna go ahead and dry fit that first.
36.
So we're gonna pull that panel off, pull out the dominoes, make sure everything's correct, fill those honeycomb chambers with epoxy, pop the dominoes back in. We'll let the epoxy cure for a bit. So that epoxy is upstairs drying now. It's been curing for a little bit, so we're gonna go check on that and get this panel installed. As you can see, we've set up a little contraption here. James, why don't you tell us what, oh yeah, see? Sucks, doesn't it? Why don't you walk us through what you actually did here and why?
The ceiling in here is actually finished. It's a Venetian plaster. It's been waxed and it's brought to the sheen that the client is looking for. So we can't damage the ceiling. So what we did is put a 1.5 inch piece of foam in between a piece of MDF. Pinned that up to the ceiling with third hands. That was going to give us a ledge for our panel to sit on as we put the dominoes in place. Oh, I'm gonna get hell on YouTube for that.
I would go a little heavier in the middle, yeah, because we took out a little extra.
Is this how the professionals do it, Doug? Oh, I skipped it. 1, 2, 3.
Alright, before we
That's where I want to be right there, Ken. So as we push it in, give me that and I'll...
nice and level.
And the right side can go down a touch, but... Once the dominoes are in place, we'll put our spreaders across from the wall and push the panel tight to our rim joists and wait the weekend.
All right, so here we have the railing completely installed. You can see the shims that we were talking about needing to make this panel plumb. And if you looked over on the other side, now you can see how large of a drop this actually is, and these springboards going across to push that panel nice and tight while that adhesive does cure. We're gonna leave this overnight, pop all this stuff off in the morning, and they're good to go to build their slat wall. So what that's gonna look like is they're gonna have a piece coming off the end over here, following all the way on that backside, right up the other edge of those stairs. And once they're done with that, we're gonna go ahead and add another panel here that is matched to this one as well. And like I had mentioned, this is made from aluminum honeycomb, so there's a lot of rigidity in here. It's not gonna move anywhere. There's no risk of it breaking, which is exactly what we're looking for in a situation like this. So that's gonna do it for this episode. We appreciate you guys watching. Please drop us a comment. Let us know what you think. This was something a little bit interesting, a little bit outside the box, and just let us know what you thought overall. If there's a better way to do it, what you would have done, just drop that in the comments below, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.